Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, the row between Nine and Seven after Kerry Stokes warns the banks will own his rival within a year. Could MTR's future be in the balance? Court hearing underway. Eddie Maguire on why he signed with Nine rival Foxtel. Plus, the sales boss at Seven West Media, Kurt Burnett, joins us here in the studio. But first, after 4 decades with News Limited, John Hartigan has resigned as CEO and chairman. His replacement is Foxtel boss Kim Williams. News digital head Richard Freudenstein takes over the reins as CEO of the subscription TV company. With analysis of why these changes have been made and what it means for the media landscape, we're joined by our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek. James, this obviously was very big news. Why do you think John Hartigan decided to step down?
Well, as we sort of found out since it happened, he's been wanting to retire for probably 9 years. He was pretty keen on getting out, but he put those plans on hold when he got offered the chief executive role back at the start of the last decade. So he's hung on a while. He let it be known, Rupert Murdoch, a year ago, look, if you're looking at some succession plan, I'd probably be pretty keen to be part of that, you know. So it's finally come to fruition. Been a lot of speculation over the last couple of years that, look, he could be looking for an exit, could be on the way out, but it's finally happened.
Well, Kim Williams taking on the CEO role, as we know. It was interesting, he was speaking to David Spears on Agenda yesterday and just explaining why he thought he was right for the job.
There's one thing I feel very confident in saying, David. I understand subscriptions. I understand customer acquisition. I understand customer retention. I understand customer value. I understand customer pricing. I understand managing customer relationship management systems really very well. And I don't mean that in a self-aggrandising way, but just as a statement of a set of skills that I have developed courtesy of Foxtel, in a way that I think is highly applicable to all of the new, fresh directions that will be going forward with paid content.
Well, this all comes at a time of, turbulence. I mean, we've been seeing the inquiry in the UK. James Murdoch set to appear again before the House of Commons committee in the UK. Obviously, the media inquiry here in Australia is starting this week too. Kim Williams taking on the CEO role, not the chairman role, though. Rupert Murdoch is going to take that. Are you reading anything into that?
No, probably that Rupert's feeling that maybe he should be, you know, back involved in the Australian business, you know. I don't think he'd be a bit brave to read too much more into it than that, but you know, he's certainly doesn't giving any signs of wanting to step back at all, does he? Taking on an extra role. Kim Williams surprised a lot of people. People thought a few years ago he might go to Sky Italia, stay within the News Corp family, but he's a great content person, you know, and he's got great management skills, so it's an interesting mix and it brings a fresh set of eyes to what is basically still a newspaper business in general here in Australia.
Well, let's get the view of advertisers. A little earlier we heard from the boss of the biggest media buyer in the country, Harold Mitchell, the executive chairman of Aegis Media Pacific.
Well, James, this has been so well done, I'd have to say, because Hardo, as we all call him, has been an incredible force over an amazing period of time. This is the greatest change that's probably happened in the media business since the introduction of television. It sounds a bit grand, but the arrival of the digital age is just such a big thing. And John Hartigan was there all the way through, I think, as boss for 11 years, and as you say, head of news, involved with news for 40 years. A journalist through and through, but became an incredibly tough, competent executive at the highest level. Not easy to do in the world of News Corp around the world, because they're so big and so powerful, dealing with business, with government, with society generally. But John Hartigan was just exceptional in every way. The change has been brought about in a seamless manner. I think for some time we've thought that it was time that John would want to do something else and deserve to do something, I'd have to say. And with Kim Williams, steps automatically into the chair in this changing world. He's come from the background of his television experience in Foxtel and building it up in a dramatic, wonderful way, and so life will just go on into the new world. Rupert has done very well in making this change in this way.
Well, in other media news, Seven Group Executive Chairman Kerry Stokes has sparked a fight with rival Nine Entertainment Company, warning about it being in financial difficulties. Nine has rejected this, but first let's listen to what Kerry Stokes had to say.
It's always sad to see a competitor in financial difficulty. Obviously, they are in financial difficulty. and that will cause some repercussions in our industry. I think that reading what I read yesterday means that they will go into covenant breach, and the banks will have a control over what happens in the future.
Let's get James's view. What do you think? Is this just shadow boxing, as Nine put it, or could the company be forced to sell some assets?
Yeah, they could be. Certainly, there's a massive debt that they're going to have trouble servicing. What would they sell? They've come out and said, look, the magazines aren't really for sale. And I don't think there's possibly anybody there who would buy them anyway. The TV station, again, you know, and there's lots of smaller assets, but they're all quite intertwined, and a lot of the benefit is of having those sort of different platforms, if you like, different brands, all sort of helping, you know, selling across all of them. So it's going to be a pretty hard thing to break up if you could find a buyer.
All right, also at the Seven Group AGM this week, Kerry Stokes spoke about it being a difficult year since June. Well, with more on the ad market outlook and how Seven, the network, is planning to keep its #1 spot in 2012, we're joined now by Kurt Burnett, the Chief Sales and Digital Officer at Seven West Media Group. Kurt, thank you so much for coming in. Well, just firstly wanted to ask you about the highlights for 2012 in terms of programming, and whether you believe you can remain #1 with just returning series on offer.
Look, it's been a terrific year for Channel 7. It's been well documented. In fact, it's our biggest ratings year and a gap on our competitors ever. So, amazing year. The returning series, most of the returning series will be back to deliver that again, and we believe we can not just lead again, but actually can create a bigger margin between competitors. And the way we're going to do that is add to that schedule. Australian production has been the key to the success. Doing your own Australian production is a big thing, and it's worked incredibly well for Seven over the last few years, and we're going to continue to do that. Next year, there's a number of big shows coming out. Working Dog is a very, very successful production group who brought us Thank God You're Here in the panel. They'll come back next year with 2 shows. Pictures of You, which is a really interesting take on the interview stakes, getting celebrities in. They're looking at their personal photos, and they'll do interviews based on that. Very funny, very emotional, and very Seven, actually. It's going to work really well, we believe, along with Sports Fever, which is very similar to Cup Fever, which they did on SBS during the World Cup. So that's going to be a weekly sports show with the guys from Working Dog, and again, that looks very, very promising and pretty damn funny too.
Let's say you sound like you're going to have the good, even if just your returning shows perform well, it's probably nearly going to be enough perhaps, but you can only sell so many ads. What sort of things can you do to the advertiser to sort of increase your revenue take?
Well, I think there's one other show that I think is going to really add to that component, and that's the AFL. I mean, for us to have 4 games, you're only free to air to have 4 games next year is going to be huge. So the revenue opportunities, the incremental revenue opportunities within Saturday afternoon and Saturday night alone is quite unbelievable.
You're paying a lot more for that too, though, aren't you? So that you really need to.
We're certainly paying more than what we did, but the numbers show that we can make money out of that, not just some, but quite a bit. And from the early accounts where we sit currently, it's very, very promising indeed. A lot of new sponsors on board already, which is quite unbelievable at this stage of the game. So the AFL is going to be one factor. The other things that it's all very nice to be #1 audience, and we will continue to be that, but it's what you do with the audience when you have it. And we've got a couple of initiatives that we've launched this year, and actually started a bit of it last year, but really starting to get into its stride. And one of those is Myriads, which is a new innovation or system that we own in this country, which is basically the post-editing of brands and products can be done post-production. So in the past with product placement, you've had to do it inside the production window, which can sometimes be 6 months out, which can be challenging at times. This allows us to put the products and ads, so we can put ads in TV screens and in computers inside the TV shows in post, and products, and it's getting incredible take-up at the moment. So that's really exciting. Red Engine TV was something that we've launched in the last few months. That's in answer to this incredible growth around brand-funded television. So what we're going to do is take our own expertise in production, our own facilities, and with our own time slots, and take on brief brand-funded TV shows and make them in conjunction with advertisers. And that's a real growing area that we wanted to get into.
Got to ask you about the state of the ad market. We did hear from Kerry Stokes about it being a tough year since June. Ten's been quite aggressive about trying to improve. I mean, is that something that you see happening? How do you see 2012 panning out?
I think there's a couple of things here. Lots has been written about the state of the current market, and I guess we need to put into perspective a couple of things. One, 2010 was the biggest television year in history. So that in itself was quite a milestone. In 2011, the expectation and the budgets, I might add, were built on a successful 2010 and the expectation there'd be growth. Now, 2011 hasn't been the kind of growth that people were looking for. So, you know, in the next few months, in the last few months, you've seen reports about year-on-years going backwards. Well, 2011 is going to end up as the second biggest television revenue year in history. So, no small milestone in itself. So we are the best set up to take advantage of that growth when it comes.
One of your competitors, of course, next year will be an old colleague, your former boss, James Warburton. Will that give you any insights into sort of what they might try at 10?
Look, no, not really. Doesn't give me insights. Yeah. I mean, James is a fierce competitor, and you know, and I've got a great deal of respect for him, and he'll do a terrific job there. But you know, it looks to me as you know, perhaps a lot of the dirty work's been done, and that's, there's been a lot of hard decisions that have been made, and so when he comes into it, I guess, you know, he's really got to get the panels out and bring that station back to life. So, yeah.
Just very quickly on the digital channels, are you finding that they're starting to attract advertisers, extra advertisers, people who perhaps couldn't usually afford to advertise on the primary channel?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the key for all of us in free-to-air TV with regards to the digitals. It has brought new advertisers in. It's created a different price point of entry into the television market, and I think it's definitely been one of the benchmarks of success for 2010. And yeah, and I mean, the only thing I will say with digital channels, very important about having a clear strategy to not cannibalise the main channel, to keep the digital separate from the main and then create overall growth, very critical path going forward.
All right, unfortunately we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Kurt.
Kurt Burnett there, Chief Sales and Digital Officer at Seven West Media Group. Stay with us. Coming up, the Fairfax AGM and the future of MTR being decided in court.